Welcome back to Nonsense, I'm Chris, and God, the first two new episodes of Rick and Morty have gone by way too fast. When the credits roll, I have been consistently like, wait, it's been 30 minutes, didn't it just start? And this one is fascinating, and a rare direct continuation of the previous episode's ending scene.
Green grass in front of us, baby!
I need a vacation.
Oh, nice!
Also basically an office reunion in the voice cast, plus a hinted new type of Meeseeks box, and most importantly, just another one of those endings that only Rick and Morty can pull off like this, perfectly depicting the existential terror of just existing in the world and showing Rick simultaneously overcoming a challenge and being unbelievably depressed. Always very relatable, even for those of us who have never invented portal travel. So let's break the episode down, starting with the title, Rick's Days, 7 Nights, a play on 6 Days, 7 Nights, the island survival rom-com that I think is actually supposed to be more of a reference to the hinted history between Rick and Marjorie. It definitely doesn't fit with the plot of the episode aside from the marketing having pushed it as like a hectic vacation story, which is what this obviously is, but the plot itself is definitely closer to parodying Severance. Like if Helly R was only ever conscious on vacations. They basically even use a direct quote from the series.
I am a person. You are not.
Who's not a real person now, huh?
Dan Harmon has a rule of threes when it comes to parodying things, so we have to assume there's at least one other movie parodied in here, but aside from the one little clue that it could be The Matrix, which I don't really think it is, I'm kind of at a loss for what it could be this time. So let me know in the comments if anything comes to mind. The cold open is great, just a really grounded scene of Rick using traditional means to repair a flat tire. A lot of people called it satisfying, obviously meant to make us realize that he's handling this entirely differently than he usually would. There's no tech involved, just some melted rubber over a standard fire patching a hole in a tire, which yes, this all would work. But after the repair, the deer that caused the flat has a moment with Rick, and this is actually a really common trope in movies, from The Queen to Antichrist, Deer Hunter, and The Witch, plenty of others I'm sure. An interaction with a single deer is typically meant to signify some sort of transition or the crossing of some kind of threshold. So it makes perfect sense here. He's crossing from being Rick to being Ted, and when the deer comes back at the end, it's to signify that Ted has crossed the threshold of awareness, that he understands that despite how smart and capable he is, there are some things he just can't fix, and that includes his own happiness or the happiness of others. Something Rick definitely struggles with. Arguably one of his big arcs is coming to terms with it. After his moment with the deer, he keeps striving till he gets to the bowling alley, Dream Lanes, which there seems to be a pretty well-known bowling alley in Madison, Wisconsin called that, though it looks completely different. He walks in and walks past some pictures that definitely tell a story. Obviously Rick is in this bowling league, but also Marjorie's whole life is here. You can see a young Marjorie here with her mom, who she clearly resembles more as she gets older. She likes bowling, and we do learn in a passing line that she now runs the bowling alley as her mom left it to her. She's happy to see Rick and knows his drink order without him saying anything. We then get the voices of his bowling friends, and I'm curious, my fellow Office fans out there, can you pick out whose voice is whose?
My God, look who it is! Welcome back, brother!
Think you can put in a word? He just wants to lay so.
Shit, you're a popsicle.
Marjorie is voiced by Amy Ryan, aka Holly. Little Mike is Paul Lieberstein, aka Toby. Big Mike is Ed Helms, and this is not an Office member, but Rob Riggle, technically guest starred. And Antonio is Oscar Nunez. 4.5 members of the Office cast feels like a lot though. It was nice hearing so many familiar voices. Anyways, everyone's happy to see Rick as Ted and talk about how it's been too long. After the theme, we've skipped to closing time, and Paul's character asks Rick if there are any openings at his job selling PVC pipes, to which Rick responds,
Son, you don't want to sell pipe.
obviously a nod at Jim always talking about not wanting to sell paper. I'm surprised Ted Rick doesn't have one of these Dream Lane bowling jackets. I also love the abducted bowling pins, but they go their separate ways except for Rick and Oscar, who go to a store literally called Country Store. store. There's a store parking only sign which feels specific enough that I'm surprised it's not used for anything. Also picking supplies and fax? I don't really know what picking supplies are. In case you need to fax someone, I guess. Rick does say this place is permanently in the 90s, I guess. They go to buy some Two Moons beer, I assume a play on Blue Moon. A robber suddenly barges in, and when the lady ducks, we can see a no pants, no service sign. Rick's defenses activate to catch the bullet, technically right before the guy even pulls the trigger, anticipating that he was about to. And for a second, you can see the robber makes the classic Rick and Morty derp face as he gets injected with a syringe. He then has a moment of staring at his implants like he doesn't know what they are and walks away, freaked out, finally cueing us, the audience, in on the fact that Ted is not just a fake name Rick is using. He heads back to the RV where we see a picture of him and the gang holding an enormous fish they must have caught ice fishing next to some lures, and we can see here he has some skis, which is interesting. He opens his drawer where we see some casino chips and coins, a fork, a thread and needle, a nail file, and a cherry lollipop. He grabs the knife, but his cybernetics stop him from stabbing himself, and a hologram plays of Rick telling Ted he's just Rick with no memories but these trips, and that they're on a planet, interestingly, not an alternate Earth in a different dimension, but a planet that's only 400 light years away. Which, conceptually cool, but logically, an alternate Earth would have made way more sense. Like, what are the odds that there's an identical Earth-like planet where they even speak English that is not in any way aware of other forms of life, including Earth, as Rick says, all only 400 light years away? That is not far at all. That's only like 94 times further than the nearest star to the Earth, not including the Sun, Alpha Centauri. Like, just the teeny tiny part of the universe we can see is 46 billion light years across, a fraction of what the actual size is too. But the nearest Earth-like planet with English-speaking humans disconnected from aliens is only 400 light years away? In infinite space, another Earth is bound to appear, but 400 light years? It doesn't matter, and I'm being pedantic, so please make fun of me in the comments. But I'm just saying, an alternate dimension Earth would have made way more sense. Or just have it be ridiculously far away, like billions of light years. But whatever. We then see a junk box, a radio, and a box full of VHS tapes before a panel appears, and hologram Rick tells him if he's in danger to press red to have his memories restored, but if not, to press blue in order to have his memories of these events wiped so he can continue the vacation. Ted doesn't like either option, so he walks out and we see he has a bowling strategies book. He stumbles out terrified and over to the bowling alley where Marjorie seems to be living. She lets him in and shows him the new light system she installed. He asks if she's still got the bed in the back, and we cut to the next morning as Ted is deciding what to do. He goes and rolls the RV down a hill, I guess thinking that was basically getting rid of it, and we cut to him and the guys ice fishing as he tries to explain that he might not exist outside of when he's here with them, but they just laugh it off and we cut to them sleeping in the cabin. But a big egg ship shows up to take Ted back home, so he heads out with a gun and his bowling league shirt, which is cute. As he approaches the ship though, his leg phone rings. You may recognize the ringtone.
Fuck me.
Show us what you got!
2, 3, 4.
Fuck me.
Turns out it's Morty calling and asking him to get in the egg, but Ted absolutely refuses, so he tries to force him in, but his friends show up and ram the egg ship with their truck. They also make a gag out of Morty being worried he'll get in trouble if Rick loses the leg phone, and they never pay it off, so I'm hoping we see the return of the leg phone. Big series finale right there. But Rick explains the ship is from his alternate self coming to get him, something that the gang just never grasps at any point in the episode, but they say they want to help. And we cut to him asking Marjorie to evacuate the bowling alley and leave so they have somewhere to prepare traps for any more ships or drones Rick sends, which we then see a compilation of, including taking control of his implants, explosive bowling balls, and flaming sprinklers. When the drones arrive, they get blown up and shot down with a bowling pin gun, but the flaming sprinkler trap doesn't work, so Marjorie would come back to check on Ted, activates it for them. Destroying the remaining drones drones but dying in the process. Brokenhearted, Ted drags a drone off to build more weapons and the guys follow. And we get this huge continuity error where he has bandages on from this perspective in the scene, but not when switched to this perspective. He tells them to leave because it's too dangerous and that he's going to track Rick down and kill him, but they refuse to leave him as he uses part of a drone to figure out where the family's house is. We then get a compilation set to Big Iron. Fallout fans will have enjoyed this scene a lot. And in the plans he draws up is this bowling ball antenna thing that he uses as a weapon after the ship crashes. But anyways, they build a makeshift ship, and once inside you can see Ted has hung up Marjorie's necklace, and yeah, it's kind of Diane-esque in a way, like technically it's Rick's fault she's dead. They take off, and I love that the sticks are literally the beer taps. That's hilarious. Once in outer space, they enjoy the sight for a second before activating some kind of faster-than-light engine, which gives them all ridiculous cartoonish features for a second. They crash into the garage and get greeted by a hologram of drunk Rick, which they still don't understand isn't actually him, so they just attack the projector until the garage fights back. Ted finally makes use of the prosthetics we saw him learn to control earlier, but it's pretty short-lived. Beth walks in, effectively ending the fight since Ted does seem concerned for her well-being, but Ed Helms takes her hostage as more of the family joins, but she's unfazed and Ted realizes she's his daughter as Summer uses an emergency code to deactivate the garage's defenses, permanently ending the fight. She then walks out saying she's going to the pool, and it's been mentioned or featured at least 6 times in 2 episodes since being added. I'm kind of starting to wonder if that's going to lead up to something, but I also have no idea what. Maybe an episode explaining how the pool got there in the first place? Morty realizes it's not actual Rick, and Ted realizes Morty was the voice on the leg phone and his grandson. Morty then starts looking for the red button as Ted asks the garage AI for tools, which it instantly provides. The guys then ask for a new bowling alley and prosthetics for themselves, which Ted is happy to do, but he immediately seems frustrated despite the guys really enjoying themselves, possibly because of how dumb they're being with prosthetics. We cut back to the house, which they've clearly been repairing, and Rick is working on a little robot that dispenses those toothpick things. The guys are asking for more stuff though, like laser eyes, so Ted shoots a portal back to their planet. They think it means they beat Rick, so they get excited and steal a bunch of nondescript tech, except for this, which is clearly a new color Meeseeks box. We know it's basically just different brands, but it does make me very curious what the green Meeseeks would look like. I'm also always curious if that's them setting something up for later, but who knows. They leave and we cut to the Beths looking at Rick, worried about him, and this is weird to me. They should obviously already know he's naked and be seeing his ding-dong, but they only react once it reaches the screen? Doesn't really make sense to me, but whatever. He's depressed, so he portals away and eventually to a bar where he's getting hammered. I love that there's always sentient mosquitoes out there, and this hot dog looks terrible. He ice fishes with some actual ice fish, drunkenly destroys a town of tiny people, takes some shrooms with mushroom people, and then finally heads back to the planet with a bowling alley, where the alley has been destroyed, replaced with an L-Mart. He heads to the old ice fishing shack where the guys have set up an automatic fishing machine out of the tech they stole from Rick. He then heads to the graveyard to pay his respects to Marjorie, and the guys are there and literally hold him up because he's too drunk to stand, and it turns out it's not Marjorie's grave even, it's little Mike's, who was accidentally killed by his own prosthetic arm. They're all pretty mad at Rick, and Big Mike goes to attack him, so he uses a device that pauses people, the time tech finally perfected and without risk of tipping off the time cops. He sees the deer again from the opening because he's crossed another threshold. He portals home, but we also see a portal fluid low warning. He interrupts the family playing Downbeat again, a continuation of the long-running gag since Downbeat is a TV term for what characters are doing at the beginning of a scene that gets interrupted by the real scene. He suddenly dumps the last few drops of portal fluid on the table saying he needs help. Morty obviously has this reaction, grabbing his hand, because at the time he got portal fluid on his hand. They head back to the garage and Ted shreds all his stuff in an alien shredder before sitting down in front of the red button. He talks about how he feels he's failed and hopes that restoring his memory will make him be able to fix things for everyone. The key line being,
I were just a little bit smarter, I could figure it out and be happy.
Which is a heartbreaking line, because he's technically just as smart as Rick. They're the same person. What he no longer has is perspective, or the years of therapy that Rick has had for that matter. better. And based on how the tech seems to work, Rick retains all the memories of being Ted. So while yes, him remembering everything clearly changes his demeanor, clearly makes him sad in a different way, I do think the whole point of doing this is so Rick can remember what it feels like to feel, well, worse than he does now. Less in control, less all-knowing and therefore responsible. Like all he could do was hurt people. That's not what Rick is anymore. We roll through the credits and the post-credit scene is just him going on another vacation, but to a weird fish island, and this time with Summer and Morty as chaperones. This was another crazy episode. Season 9, baby. They are on a roll so far, at least in my opinion. Let's hope they can keep this up all season. If you noticed anything I missed, please leave it in the comments so I can include it in my post-season follow-up video that's updated with commenters' notes like I did last season. I'll be doing next week's episode as soon as it comes out, like I've done with the first 2 so far, so don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
It didn't work. No. It did.